Hey guys, welcome back to Team Lit. So today we're going to give you a SwordSoul versus Tier Ishizu Marincess. Very interesting deck build. I like my opponent's creativity. As for me, I am on the SwordSoul grind. I may or may not have watched a certain YouTuber making some SwordSoul profiles, and it got me thinking of also splashing some Bystials in, but I haven't went to like the full extremes that most people are doing with the SwordSoul decks. I kind of have my own variation that I'll discuss after. But yeah, let's just get into the games and see how these goes, right? So I won the rock paper scissors, so I opted to go first. So my hand's pretty spicy. The only thing is it's not a guaranteed hand, right? So at this point I actually don't know what my opponent's playing, and you know I have a Desires and a SwordSoul Emergence, but like nothing really to follow up. I'm basically playing Please Don't Negate Me or Ash Me at this point. So resolve the Desires and boom, okay, we have combo. So this is a pretty amazing hand right now, just because the Desires resolved and I managed to resolve this Emergence and I did search the Moe. So standard Moe plays, reveal, summon, synchro into the Chizhao, and Chizhao with the Moe is fantastic, right? You get your draw, you get your search, the usual SwordSoul things. SwordSoul is quite fair, I feel, right now. Even though this hand did look quite, strong, the deck generally is just fair, and you don't really get this all the time, but it was nice to see, because I have so many interruptions to do with whatever my opponent could possibly be playing, right? Unless they maybe like main deck evenly match, then there's not much hope for me, but hoping for the best right now. And then, so my opponent is also Shirin, and I now know I'm up against Tears. So I do make a blunder here, I hit the wrong target. I wasn't really paying attention, but it ended up sort of working out in the long run somehow. So I negate the Kid Kalos. This card is just so good right now. There's a reason why I got hit in the OCG. It does so much for the deck, and when you're going up against Tears, generally, most of the time, you only stop them from fusion summoning. Like, they're gonna do so much of things to be like super consistent that the deck just feels like really oppressive. So the best you can do is just to make sure that you either hit their fusion so they can't set up enough this turn, and then maybe try and finish them off in the next turn. But yeah, so I do a very desperate Ash on the Merly. Okay. It's not ideal, but I was taking a chance because I do still have plenty of other disruption here to counteract anything that my opponent could have, right? So the Magnamut resolves, I get my True Swarm. So just a heads up, I am actually only playing 3 Magnamut and 2 True Swarm. Serenea is nice, but it doesn't do anything for my deck, where True Swarm does a hell of a lot because of its basically, if this card is sent from field to graveyard, you can target one special summon once your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. That to me is just 10 times more useful than obviously Serenade into dropping a branded spell. But to each their own. I know people play a bit of everything, so they can see more of it. But personally, I've had much more success with these kind of ratios. So I'm just gonna resolve the Incredible Ecclesia, get another Moe, build a Vishuda, and at this point we're just pushing for game, right? We're just gonna make sure that we can kill our opponent off, and he surrenders. So that was game 1. A little bit more, in favor of me because I did draw an extremely really good hand. That's not the way to say it. I mean, there was so many interruptions even against a tier player. I had basically almost everything I could do to stop him, and obviously if you can check the cards in his hand, it didn't really help at that time, so I was able to close that off and go for the throat. So we got into game 2, and I didn't actually side anything, because the way my deck's kind of constructed, it has a really good match sort of into tiers. The reason why I say sort of is that my side deck is very, very much constructed to go against back row decks and other random decks that would probably just be able to club me. I personally believe that swords, as they are fair and strong on their own. But yeah, so let's just quickly get into this game, right? So my opponent goes first. I blow the Ash immediately, just taking a gamble, hoping they bricked, because obviously, the previous game they had cards in hand, but they didn't seem like they could extend enough. So I was thinking that, okay, maybe that was a thing. So this is when the Marincess actually come up for the first time. This was a bit of a shock for me. But after reviewing my opponent's deck, just to figure out what was happening here, I feel like it's because maybe this person doesn't have access to the field spell in real life, that they try to like supplement it with other kind of stuff to help a bit with the consistency with the Marincess, blue tang and all of that kind of stuff that can move, as well as just a searcher for Marincess wave. I gotta lie though, Scream kind of was the clutch card in this game, but you'll see that going forward, right? So this is kind of a very underwhelming board because it's just Ludicrous and a Scream, right? But against my hand, that actually is pretty much enough, right? So yeah, not the best board, but it's decent enough to deal with whatever I pull out. So unfortunately, we draw into Macbeth, which is completely useless in the situation. So I do my best to negate the negate, and I go for the normal summon with the SwordSoul Tire. All in all, this was a bit of a misplay. I should have activated Emergence first and see where that took me. But at the end of the day, like, I didn't really see a way to get past the Scream. The Scream was like the biggest thing for me because they can just go off on me, which they did. They got rid of the tire. I activate the Emergence as cope, and that was it. There's nothing I could do. He would finish me off the next turn. Okay, so we go to game 3. So game 3, my hand's pretty good because I opened up the Ashuna and the Vishuddha. So Ashuna plus another Tenyi generally means like combo. So at this point, and plus the Emergence, right? Emergence is overkill, the Blackout, and the Magnum Butt. So pretty dreamy hand going first. Hoping my opponent doesn't have disruptions, interruptions. But, there's tier, so you can never be too sure if they opened up the name that they need. But yeah, you just go for broke. So normal like standard Tenyi lineup into a Chijao. That is what it is. Like I said, these will always like resolve into Chijao, so I'm into the Chijao. And I search out the Longya. Reason why is, I think that the Sinister Sovereign, this bad boy, is just such a good card against tiers. Actually, it's a good card against most decks that heavily rely on combo, right? Because you removing a body, and removing that body, okay, the burn is a nice like extra, yeah, but removing the body is so important, especially like in a format where you're seeing a lot of like continuous field spells or any kind of these just like cards that are going to be used. Even if you're going up against a control matchup and they drop like one of their floodgates that's a continuous, you can banish that floodgate, burn your opponent, and then on top of that, because it says it's a continuous spell card that's off the field, effects won't resolve, right? They go away. So overall, I've been seeing like a lot more success with this card going into it instead of like a Baron, against like a lot of the, I would say, really stronger decks out there that you can see that need bodies in order to play the game. So anyways, let's continue. So Blackout set, Chijao, and Longya. So my opponent does something a bit different that I wasn't expecting, right? They open up the Impa. Now when they opened up the Impa, I fully expected them to hit the Sinister Sovereign with that, because I think that like losing bodies, especially with Scream, right? Like you want Scream to kind of resolve, because you can generally just combo off it, I feel, and it has a lot of like value. It adds a lot of value, to you as a player. So I think impoming the Sinister Sovereign here would have been like the better option to do. But yeah, anyways. So opponent negates the Chijao, they have instant noodles. I'm like, okay, because they don't want me to negate their Kid Kalos, but like I said, I just get rid of it. And yeah, they do the full Marincess like combo. But at this point, Marincess is still like a link engine, and I'm not seeing anything that can, like, at this point, I'm like, okay, can I actually do this? Because this is negated, and if I pop these two here, It's a bit of a gamble, but it's like, okay, do these generate my opponent resources when I do this? No, better late than never. So get rid of them, and that turned out to work out. It worked out. So I draw into the Drew Swarm, which is pretty good. I use the effect of the Bystial to get rid of the unknown. And at this point, I don't need to do anything because I'm like, okay, what if they trying to just play conservatively and they have maybe a name in hand, or maybe they wanted to do something different. You have enough damage, go into the battle phase, and we go for the throat. And yeah, that's that. So let me just get into the SwordSoul deck profile and we can talk about a little bit more of these points. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching these duels, and yeah, let's just get into the deck profile.